Chris gave me a lot of love there. Fourth best moderator. Oh boy. Okay. So now I got to disprove him. Anyway, welcome. Good morning, I should say. That's pretty weak. You know, we're right between morning and afternoon, but I know we've all had coffee, so let's do it one more time. Good morning. Much better, much better. We're trying to go from fourth best moderator to 3.5, so this is what I'm working on. So anyway, hey, I appreciate Chris and Multimedia allowing me to host today's session. It covers one of my favorite topics, finished vehicle logistics, with two of my best friends here. And these are the topics I love to talk about. I'm Dennis Manns. I've known many of you over the years with all my Honda experience. Now we're doing an advisory role with the North Motors Group, and things are going great. I want to extend a couple thank yous before we get into our topic today, if you don't mind. And, first and foremost, I want to thank Chris and Richard and Matt and everybody with the publication for putting on this event. And, when they scheduled this thing several weeks out, a lot of us had question marks about, attendance and all this kind of thing. And I'll be honest, if you're here in person or if it's a virtual, this thing has been great. Attendance has been great. The sessions have been great. The facility, the whole thing. So that was a courageous move by the publication. So I can't see with the lights the back of the house, but Chris, great job with you guys putting this together. So let's give him a big hand if you don't mind, please. Thank you. The other thing is, I want to thank the sponsors. I don't have a list of sponsors. I don't work for the publication, but these things don't happen without the sponsors. Ryder they've been a main sponsor with this thing for many, many years. They put on the dinner last night. They did a phenomenal job. And so with all the sponsors, again, I don't know the names, but on behalf of everybody attending this week's conference, we appreciate the support of the conference itself. So those are the thank yous, and I want to introduce our two speakers today. Charles and I worked at Honda for many, many years, and we won't disclose how many, Charles. And Charles is now with Glovis, but Charles and I have known each other for many, many years, but we appreciate you sitting in on the panel today. And Jeff Dzierbicki, did I mess it up?
Close enough.
Pretty close, is with Rubicon. And I believe you have a presentation today you're going to share with us?
Yep.
Very good. So let's turn it over to Jeff, and we'll walk through his presentation.
Well, one of the main points that we want to make here is talking about network optimization, how the OEMs handle it, how 3PL can fit into that slot, and how the suppliers also fit into that. So we did an online survey before the conference, and it asked, what are your priorities in terms of network optimization? What do you look at in terms of cost, transit time, quality, or greenhouse gas? And the outcome wasn't surprising to probably most people that the preference or the focus is on cost. But what was surprising to me was that number was very much closer than I thought it would be to all the other elements that are out there. So it came back with 35%, I think, for cost, and the rest were in the 20s. And I think as we see the dealer stock levels continue to dwindle and the focus being on the customer, the individual consumers ordering vehicles and more vehicles being more of a build-to-order type of model, that focus is going to continue to shift. And looks like it's pulling up now. Go ahead to the second slide. So again, back to the focus on cost. And as an industry, we're going to be dealing with a lot of things in the next coming 1 to 2 years as production ramps up to normal levels. The outlook that was given yesterday was that we're still going to be impacted by the semiconductors through the first half of 2022. We probably won't actually hit back to full overtime and ongoing production until maybe 2023. So with that in mind, and where we've been in the last 18 months, we have a long way to go to be able to handle that production. A lot of the focus in the conference so far has been on all the things that are being done on the semiconductor side and on the supply side in terms of getting that production back up, but there's going to be a huge impact on the back end for finished vehicle transportation that we as an industry aren't currently ready to handle. So go to the next slide. And this plays into this quote, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten. In this case, that's probably not going to be the truth. We're going to have to relook at how we manage our supplier relationships as an OEM group, and also look at, as a supplier, how we're coming to the OEMs with ideas and situations that we're dealing with in terms of distribution of vehicles. Go to the next slide. Two major things that we've all talked about, we've talked about a lot here in the last 2 days, and has been COVID first hitting the industry, and then we almost got near back to normal in the fourth quarter of last year, and then as soon as January hit, we had the semiconductor shortage, and that's been impacting us ever since. That production, the global production number, has continued to go down and down and down and step down, and we're at a near low in terms of global production as of Q3. That's expected to go back up in Q4 and hopefully continue to go back up, but there's a number of things that can still happen to impact that. So what's happened on the finished vehicle side? We've lost a lot of capacity because of that. A lot of drivers have left and moved on to other industries, and railroads have rescheduled exactly how they're running their trains because they don't have the same volumes that they had before. Overall, the network, and it's a shared network across all OEMs, are operating somewhere in the 60 to 70% range in terms of volume and capacity that's moving in what we would deem as normal. So the low dealer stock is driving what's going to happen in the future. In the presentation that was shown yesterday, we're at an all-time low for dealer stock. We're under 1 million units. When COVID first came about, we're at 3.5 million units. So imagine the fact that we not only have to replace 2.5 million, which we probably won't ever maybe do, but we also have to fulfill the outstanding demand that's out there from the consumers, which is huge. So it's going to take years to recover that, and it's going to take years of the plants running at full production to get back to what used to be normal. And all that is going to impact what happens in the finished vehicle logistics space. Go ahead to the next one. Another disruptor that's out there that's coming and has started to show is electric vehicles. Everybody's got a plan. Every OEM has a plan to ramp up electric vehicle production. What does that mean in the finished vehicle space? It means a big impact on capacity because they're heavier in weights because of the batteries. You can't put as many on a truck as you used to. You've got additional infrastructure that needs to be considered throughout the network of charging stations. Who's paying for those? Who's maintaining them? What's the optimum battery levels of everything? And what about the extra additional handling of those vehicles to make sure that they stay charged and at the level that they need to be? And the electric vehicles are also driving a different kind of distribution model. Different OEMs have different strategies. Some are looking more at direct to consumers, the startups. The existing OEMs are looking at different options such as building to stock and storing at regional locations so that electric vehicles are more readily available when consumers want them. And they're in the status that they need to be in terms of monitoring their level of battery and everything associated with that. Go to the next slide. So how that all ties to network modeling and network optimization is you've got all these variables and all different inputs, and you've got the conflicting pull of cost, service to the dealer, greenhouse gas impact that's now becoming a much larger variable, and quality. If you deliver a damaged vehicle, that doesn't do much for the customer, does it? So all that needs to be considered along with all the inputs, and it needs to be a continuous process. When I was at General Motors 15 years ago, our process was to design the network and create an optimal plan, and it lasted for 6 months. And because it was such a large undertaking, you took it in chunks of the network, and you took a piece at a time because you couldn't do the whole thing at once. Where we're going to now is we need to be able to optimize, and optimize based on all these different variables and all the changes that are going to happen. So you can run that model and run it the same way, and you're going to get a different result, potentially on a day-to-day basis. And that also needs to be aligned with where that capacity is in the network. Go to the next slide. So dynamic modeling is where we need to be. I don't think that's really happening right now, but it's something that we're working on with partners in terms of looking at multiple scenarios, understanding the best case of what the current operational situation is, and providing the best solution to get the vehicle to market at the lowest cost that also meets the customer expectations. Go ahead to the next. So I talked about a lot of problems, and I gave a doomsday outlook of we're not going to be able to handle all this production, but there are some things that people can do in order to try to mitigate some of those problems. That's looking at your network completely differently. We've got a planned hub and spoke. We've got a 500 to 700 mile radius around a plant, and that's kind of our mode split. All that needs to be reevaluated in terms of how we manage, because we're going to be short on rail cars, we're going to be short on trucks. There's not really another conveyance for how you're going to move those vehicles. OEM coordination. OEMs need to do a better job working together, as well as the suppliers working with the OEMs. If I've got a plant that I'm hauling out of in Alabama to Ohio or Michigan, and I've got a contract in place, instead of heading back empty, of course people are looking for backhauls, but there should be some coordination either between a 3PL and the OEMs, or between the supplier and the OEMs to say, I've got this existing contract. I can eliminate my empty miles if you give me some traffic that I'll haul back, and I think I can be competitive with other modes, as one example. Win-win scenarios for everybody. Your supply chain can definitely be viewed as a competitive advantage, but in the finished vehicle logistics space, we all operate in the same network. We all compete for the same capacity. We are on the same trains. Sometimes we're on the same trucks, the dealer. We're a shared network, and we need to operate in that manner. Instead of optimizing our network, at the same time that we do that, we're sometimes sub-optimizing the entire network as a whole. So again, dynamic and flexible network optimization is something that needs to be run constantly, not on an infrequent basis. And the strategic alignment with service providers. Look at investments in the service providers. Come with proposals. You're going to need to buy capacity ahead of time instead of when you need it now. And that's a really hard thing to do because of the cost and understanding that impact to the customer. So finally, last slide. This is just a map of all the plants. It makes a lot of sense for a lot of these to be connected with different modes, different nodes, and working together in trying to optimize the entire network as a whole. Right.
Thank you. Charles, you don't have a presentation, I don't think. No. Why don't you just give us an overview of your responsibilities at Glovis, because I know it's changed a little bit the past several months or whatever.
Well, first of all, my responsibilities at Glovis is the Senior National Manager of Business Development, is just that, developing business opportunities for Glovis and for our strategic partners. And so that's end-to-end automotive and other logistics services. So we handle inbound transportation, we handle the receiving of those components, we handle the just-in-time delivery of those components, we can do yard management, we do outbound vehicle logistics. And we do that for some major OEMs and a number of growing strategic partners. So as it relates to this discussion, and I agree with the key word collaboration. Naturally, as Dennis spoke, I come from Honda, and Honda, like all the other OEMs, everybody is so protective of their information and their partnership. So you will not see, at least at this point, a Honda on the same truck as a Chevrolet, or pick another brand, if you will, and that goes around. One of the things that I spoke to before, several years ago at some of these FVL conferences, was how we need to collaborate. And so one of the things, as Glovis's strategic partners grow, we actually have the network design and capacity requirements of multiple OEMs. And so if these OEMs would agree to collaborate, then we could put different brands on the same vehicles and or trains, and that way you get out of the factory or wherever you are faster because you're not waiting for full loads because you can mix those loads. In addition to that, when you have full visibility of all these networks, then you can now plan your backhauling, and so you're reducing mileage, you're reducing time, and you're reducing cost. And also you're going to reduce the number of drivers required during this shortage because now you're maximizing the capacities of what's available. Also, as he addressed with the weight of these new EV vehicles, they're heavy, and if you add the new EV tractor trailers to be coming, they're even heavier. And with the 80,000-pound limit on the U.S. roads today, that limits it. So already moving forward, we've designed some new trailers that are much lighter, as well as they have a lower ground clearance, which would accommodate the EVs. And actually, just last week, we successfully loaded out 7 of these 5,200-pound vehicles on one trailer, which, you know, is a feat. For those of you who aren't aware, that's a feat to get that many of these EVs on one trailer and be legal. So again, I just want to say I agree with the collaboration, and again, we're in a prime position because, again, as our partnership grows, and when we get those partners in a position that they're willing to share equipment, you're going to dramatically reduce the requirements needed for moving these vehicles.
Great, thanks, Charles. Good comments. So, Jeff, let me start with you. We're seeing more and more OEMs that are doing or experimenting with doing online transactions, you know, or if not the complete transaction, parts of the transaction. You know, they all want that Amazon-like experience. So, from a logistics standpoint, does this have an impact on what we do, you know, from an industry standpoint? Is there implications or challenges there?
Yeah, and as all of us have ordered off of Amazon, we have full visibility to where whatever we ordered is and when we're going to get it. And, you know, we get pretty upset if it's one day late, where when you order a vehicle, you really don't have a solid idea of when you're going to get it. And that goes back to the underlying procurement strategy of OEMs. They didn't purchase a network that can support an Amazon type service. Right. So they don't have scheduled deliveries. They don't run the same route every day. So it adds unpredictability into the network. But meeting that consumer demand is going to become an even greater variable in terms of that network optimization study.
Right.
So I think that focus is good for us as a consumer, and hopefully good for the OEM in terms of providing a better service to that customer.
Yeah, cool. And Charles, I know you got your hands on a lot of different things across the Glovis spectrum. What are your thoughts in regards to this discussion? Is there things that you guys are looking at, talking about?
There's things we're talking about, things we're doing. In fact, the young lady who spoke just the other day is visibility. You know, everybody, you buy a 49-cent ink pen on Amazon, and you can see where that thing is all the way through the supply chain. But I buy a $150,000 vehicle, and once it leaves, it's gone. I don't know where it is. And so everybody's asking for visibility. So it's interesting, while I was at Honda, I actually have a patent pending for a visibility system. So if it happens, Honda will benefit. But at any rate, there's ways to do it. But the problem is, again, all of this historically silo vision of OEMs, their information is not being shared. And so you have the trucker, you have the rail yard, you have the yard vehicle processing center, the ocean liner, all of these things, and that information is not shared. And so therefore you have difficulty tracking that. So what we need is a platform that allows us to accept all of these different platforms, to share that information so that you can seamlessly track the vehicles. Then you run into people, particularly in the trucking lines, they talk about privacy. So if you put an application on their phone system, they say, well, that is invading my privacy, but that gives you a simple way to do a GPS location of a truck. So we have a system that we can utilize from handhelds right now that gives you that visibility, but again, does it connect with a vessel? No. We can use some models to do the trains, but again, visibility is the number one thing, and we as an industry need to work on that.
Yeah. Way cool. Thank you. I think Rubicon's actually got a poll question that we can vote on. Can we publish that here? Pop that up. We'll do better with that than Jeff's presentation. Maybe yes, no. Do we have a system guy? Anyway, let me jump ahead. So, at the conference here, we've got 3 or 4 different of the startup electric companies, and I had lunch, dinner with a couple of them. So, for both of you, with the experience and everything that you guys have gone through, what suggestions would you might provide these guys as some of them move closer and closer to launch? Is there any logistics advice we might share, Jeff?
Well, I think they have to make the decision up front of, is vehicle transportation going to be a core competency that they manage in-house?
Yeah.
Do they want to develop that in-house expertise, or do they want to look to somebody like us that can help them do that?
Right.
And I'll piggyback on that, but I'll be a little more direct, that you should partner with somebody like us. What I tell all of my customers, focus on your quality and your manufacturing process. Give the vehicle to me and point. And don't waste any of your expertise and your knowledge on getting it to the customer. We have you. And that's really what you should do.
Yeah. So the Rubicon question is what will be the most important factor in your network 5 years from now? Surprise, surprise, cost is still a huge component for all of us, which that's not a surprise, obviously. But you can vote here, and then we'll close it out, I think, at the end of this session. So, Charles, when I was doing my Honda logistics thing, every day I would look at improving my network design, looking at better analytics, best-in-class partners. And I know, the group I'm with, we're working on a Mexico automotive terminal. And those are the 3 things that we kind of prioritized in putting this automotive terminal together. For Glovis and for are those 3 items, are those things that you guys consider in your daily business discussions?
Which are your 3 here?
The better network design, better analytics, best-in-class partners. Are those things you guys talk about internally?
Most definitely. In speaking to the visibility part, we have our in-house tool with ICL that we manage that takes in all that information and gives us those analytics.
Yep.
So that we know we have our dashboards every morning that we look at. We can identify our problem spots. We can pinpoint with accuracy where we have the issue that we need to address, and we have our alternatives ready on how we're going to address those.
Yeah. Charles?
So yes and no. And the yes part is we have a full team, our vehicle logistics team, our port ops team, and they focus on those partnerships
Right.
and those efficiencies. My job is I focus on the customer's requirement, and then I go back and push these guys to meet that. So my number one focus is yours. And so if you're our customer, what is it you're trying to accomplish? I go back to my team and says, this is what I need to do. How can you guys do it? And so those discussions happen every day, but not from where I sit.
Yeah. So, and we have a number of great service providers, system providers here. Are we an industry that's open to new concepts? Or is it tough to sell these things sometimes?
Yeah, I think it's
And
tough.
I have a couple chuckles from the audience, just so you know. So,
I think it's tough for people to invest. We're still doing a lot of the same old things that we've always done. And for us that have been in the industry for a long time, have you seen a lot of change in the last 20 years? There's been some. But it hasn't been land-breaking. It hasn't been anything that changes the entire dynamic of how we manage finished vehicles.
And from my perspective, particularly with the introduction of the, most people know but don't know, of the wave of new OEMs that are coming to U.S., is creating that environment for change. So change is coming, and I think that might be one of the advantages of the COVID era, because it forced us to change the way we're doing things. So I think today this industry is more open to change than I've ever seen before.
yeah. And I think sometimes the difficulty is identifying what's truly going to best optimize and move that pendulum for you. You know what I'm saying? And then you got to go sell it. And I think these are the devils we deal with sometimes within our own organizations. So, but yeah. So again, when I was in my Honda role, I'm not a systems guy who's a systems guy, but I'm huge on analytics, because you can't do what we do without good analytics, right? And so every day every day for 31 years, I'm looking at my numbers, whether I was in a sales role, a marketing role, a logistics role, distribution role, the devil's in the details. And so I would imagine with the number of units you handle each day, you're looking at numbers in a variety of areas, huh?
Right. And again, as a whole network, we're looking at 60 different destination facilities, 20 different plants. It's everywhere, right?
Right.
And you have to understand what your pain points are and have a solution ready in order to cope with the issues that are out there. Even at a state where we are right now, and with reduced volume in the network, there's still problems that occur. And we have to partner with the suppliers to resolve those, and we have to have that long-term plan and conversation about what we're going to be doing 6 to 12 months from now.
Yeah. And Charles, you guys on a normal time, which this is not normal, but normal times, Hyundai, Kia, domestic, you guys are $1.5 million, $1.7 million, $1.8 million, something in that range. A lot of numbers. There's a lot of analytics there for you guys.
100%, and we have a whole process improvement team with engineers, and some of them are amazing. Eleanor is one, and I mean, these guys get down to the nitty-gritty, and they make it happen. And so, yes, that analytics is happening every day. But in addition to that, which something that I truly enjoy, is you got to be flexible. So you can have all the numbers in the world, but if you're not ready to bend in the direction of those numbers, it's wasted time.
Totally agree.
So you got to be able to move.
Yeah. And if there's anything we've learned from COVID, we've learned from COVID. And I think that's one of them is, you have to be extremely flexible and learn how to bob and weave a little bit, huh?
100%.
Yeah. All right, we only have a couple minutes. Chris explained to me this is the most important session of the day. It's the most powerful one because it's the only thing between you and lunch. So it's, so we're going to close with a couple more quick questions here. So with all the great systems we have, all the handheld devices we have, all the tablets, connectivities we have, are we better than we were 10 years ago? We
Yes.
got all this information. Tell me we're better, right?
I agree. We are.
Good answer. No, seriously, we got to be better. We know more, right?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Decision making's quicker.
Better visibility. A lot of people will update it to away from legacy systems. They have that visibility. We're getting better information from suppliers. It is happening.
My answer is it depends on where you look. So some areas we're amazingly better, and some areas we're stuck in the mud.
Right, right. Everybody still wants the Domino's Pizza Hut app, though, right? Where's my car? Do you get that?
Yeah,
Huh?
where's my car? Yeah. And why can't we do that with a car?
Yeah. All right. One last question, because again we're running out of time. So talk to us as a group about the industry and customer expectations around visibility, which you talked about a little bit, and ETA reliability, which reliability has been a huge challenge, right? Jeff?
So it depends on, again, going back to what that strategy is from the source of how I'm going to move the vehicle first, and having a set plan, having a schedule, understanding the production. And at this point right now today, there's issues with that because sometimes decisions are made on a Thursday that the plant's not able to produce vehicles next week because of the semiconductor shortages. So the reliability today is not good. We've got, I think, the systems in place in order to provide very reliable ETAs, but right now the network and the unpredictability in the network doesn't support that. And then on the opposite of that, when production jumps back up, we're going to have the same problems because now we're not going to have all the capacity on train, all the capacity on truck. What does that look like when we don't have the empties and we don't have the trucks?
Charles?
I think it's really about open communication because your expectations are based upon what somebody sold you to some extent. And so you have to be open about what's happening in the network, what's impacting the network so that the customer and the recipient understands that. So if you ever notice, if you go to a fast food restaurant, you notice there's a clock. and it's ticking.
Yep.
Okay, that
Yep.
is put in there on purpose because they did a study, and before those clocks were in place, people would pull up to a fast food restaurant and they order their sandwich, and they anticipated that sandwich would be delivered within 4 seconds. And so by putting that clock there, they have reset the expectations, which gives them enough time to provide the service that was asked. So we've got to not only do better at meeting those expectations, but we all need to do better at communicating those expectations so that there's a better understanding of what is actually happening. And that's my 2 cents.
So, and this question is for everybody in the audience. When we look at this current environment 5 years from now, and we go to think about which year was more difficult, was it last year, was it this year, or next year? Because we got COVID and we got the microchip issue, right, for all of us. So 5 years from now, or at some point in the future, when you're sitting there, you know, and when Chris is running his session here, and he's got his other 4th best moderator up here, what do you think we're going to decide was the most challenging for us
I think next year.
next year?
I think 2023. I think we're going to get through next year, and we're going to continue to have some shortages, but by the time 2023 hits and everybody's able to do maximum production, we're going to have huge problems within the network.
So next year also?
Yeah, well, 2023.
Yeah, or 2 years out, I'm sorry. That actually wasn't an option, but I understand how this works. So anyway, hey, thank you to my panelists. They did a great job. Let's give them a big hand. Thank you to you guys for staying with me, for allowing me to be the 4th best moderator. Chris, thanks so much, and I think it's now lunchtime. It's all yours.
I mean, at least the 3rd best now, I have to say,
Thank
Dennis.
you.
Nothing
Thank
less.
you.
Nothing less. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone, to the poll. Just a really quick word. First, can we pull up the poll results? We'll just show everybody that, because I think that can compare. So, yeah, Jeff, 52% cost, 23% transit time, around 20% emissions. So cost has moved up quite a bit from when that survey was, I think we referenced earlier, right? So unfortunately, that probably not such a surprise given the context we're in.